A continuación, se dirigirá a ustedes el representante señor David Dreier, presidente de la Comisión de Reglamento de la Cámara de Representantes de los Estados Unidos de América, quien hablará a nombre del speaker, señor Dennis Hastert, quien debió asistir a los funerales de un alto magistrado de la Corte Suprema estadounidense que se desarrolla en este mismo minuto en Washington. Tiene la palabra el señor Dreier.
Mr. President, muchísimas gracias. Mr. President, merci beaucoup. Let me say what a great privilege and honor it is for me to be able to address such a distinguished group of international leaders. I'm here, as President Paez said, in behalf of the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Dennis Hastert, and I'm here in the capacity of welcoming all of you to the United States of America. I'd like to begin by expressing my appreciation to President Paez and to all of you for the moment of silence that you had in recognition of the tragic loss that we have suffered here in the United States of America. It is due to this tragedy and the death of the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court that Speaker Hastert could not be here, but he asked that I carry his greetings to all of you. As was mentioned, we are dealing with what some have described as the worst natural disaster in the history of the United States of America. I've had the opportunity over the past few minutes to express my appreciation individually to so many of you, whether to Chairman Wu Banjiao from China or Speaker Berjanadze from the Republic of Georgia. I want to express on behalf of all of the American people our heartfelt appreciation for the tremendous outpouring of support from 94 countries around the world to assist us in this great crisis. The compassion and generosity of the global community during this time of great loss and destruction has been overwhelming, and we very much appreciate it. Recovering from this disaster will be a top priority of Congress in the days ahead. Unfortunately, I'm sure that many of you can relate to the similar tragic circumstances that the United States of America is facing today. In fact, some have described our tragedy as our tsunami. Speaker Hastert asked me to welcome you because we've been working together on a new initiative through which the United States House of Representatives will offer assistance to strengthen parliaments in emerging democracies worldwide. It's called the House Democracy Assistance Commission. Working with other parliaments in an important part is a very important part of our work. And I applaud this conference's central focus, as was outlined in President Paez's opening remarks, of how parliaments can contribute to democracy. For I firmly believe that governments, even democratically elected governments, that lack strong and effective parliaments, do their citizens a disservice by limiting the fire and flame of debate, faction, and public discourse. This stifles expression and compromise, two key elements of effective governance. As Winston Churchill once said, it is not the parliaments who should rule, it is the people who should rule through Parliament. In just a few days, as you know, this coming Sunday, we will mark the 4th anniversary of one of the most tragic days in U.S. history, that being September 11th of 2001. As a country and as a global community, we continue to reflect on how those events and the subsequent attacks in Spain, Morocco, England, Indonesia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and other spots around the world have forced an enormous transformation for individuals, communities, and nations. Make no mistake, these attacks targeted the core values of freedom and democracy that are embodied in the democratic parliaments represented here today, which is why so many nations have joined the fight against global terrorism. Tragically, in addition to terrorism, there is another threat to lives and liberties around the world: oppressive governments. Whether they are outright dictatorships or democracies in name only, governments exist on 4 continents which not only deny democratic rights, but also basic human rights. The common thread that runs through these regimes is the lack of a strong legislative check on executive power. If a parliament even exists, it is either beholden in a form of perverse servitude to the chief executive, or so institutionally weak that it can do nothing but sit idly by and watch as the people they purportedly represent are abused and denied basic human rights. Despite the dark dual threat of terrorism and non-democratic governance, we can be hopeful because we have faced and defeated anti-democratic forces before. 20 years ago, very few of us could foresee that the Berlin Wall and Warsaw Pact would collapse, and these formerly communist countries would be some of the strongest democracies in the world. The key to this transformation was for an effective legislature to act as a strong check on the executive branch. In the early 1990s, the United States Congress embarked on an ambitious program known as the Frost-Solomon Task Force to provide material and technical assistance in 10 developing Eastern and Central European parliaments. The concept was simple: to lend our expertise to help these fledgling parliaments find their footing and develop the skills, capacity, and institutional responsibility necessary to act as that needed check on executive power. And as full-fledged, successful democracies now span from Prague to Bucharest, I have to say that the task force, combined with so much other assistance from many of you, including the Inter-Parliamentary Union and others, was successful in its goals. Today, a new wave of democratization is sweeping the globe. In Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Ukraine, reformers are throwing off the shackles of oppression for a new, hopeful, more democratic future. But just like the Soviet successor states of a decade ago, they are in the earliest stages of the democratic transformation. In recognition of this, and in recognition that democracy is mankind's best response to strife, poverty, and extremism, and yes, terrorism, the United States House of Representatives is embarking once again on a program to strengthen democratic institutions by offering technical assistance to parliaments in emerging democracies. The bipartisan House Democracy Assistance Commission, which I'm honored to chair, has been chartered to offer the advice and support of both members of Congress and congressional staff to partner parliaments globally. We've completed our first round of parliamentary assessments and look forward to starting our assistance programs early next year. I firmly believe that our Commission's efforts will be a model for the contribution of parliaments to democracies. For while I know it is easy for all of us to focus only on the pressing issue of the day, it is also our responsibility to transfer the trust that our electorate puts in us to help strengthen legislatures in weak democracies and support movements for change in places where democracy is a concept, not a practice. As parliaments, we must work together on building bilateral and multilateral relationships. We must strengthen existing legislative exchanges and initiate new ones. Established legislatures must mentor fledgling ones. And we must reach out to opposition parties working against intolerant regimes. Public service is a privilege, and we must do good with the opportunity that it is presented to us. As parliamentarians, we are uniquely positioned to contribute to the advancement of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law simply by representing the best interests of the voters that elected us. We are the direct voice of the people, and with that comes a special, unique responsibility to promote and protect the core freedoms and liberties that are the inalienable rights of every individual. Parliaments and parliamentarians, by association, must honor that most sacred trust granted us by the people, the trust that we will govern in their interests, and we will govern fairly, and that we will respect the rule of law. Ronald Reagan once described our role in parliaments this way. He said, and I quote, "We know what real democracy constitutes. We understand its implications. It means the rule of law for the leaders as well as the people. It involves limitations on the power of the state over the people. And it means orderly debate and meaningful votes." This parliamentary forum, assembled here at the United Nations, can make great strides in achieving the promise of a more equitable and representative future for everyone around the globe. Working together, I know we can do much to improve the lives of citizens around the world. And I know we will strive to maintain the highest example of parliamentary integrity. For as one Shiite parliamentarian in Lebanon recently said, if we're going to be the ones carrying the message of change, we have to make sure the change is good. Once again, on behalf of the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Dennis Hastert, I welcome all of you here to the United States of America and wish you a very, very productive conference. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Deseo agradecer la intervención del representante, señor David Dreier, y también del presidente de la Asamblea General, señor